Thank you, Chairwoman. Thank you, Commissioner, for being with us today. Just a couple of questions. One on the unemployment insurance debt that is owed to the federal government. Where does that stand at today, and what efforts are we making to pay that down?
It's $9.6 billion. It's a staggering amount of money. It is not the highest amount owed by a state. We're fourth, I think. And we're also one of the largest employing states. So you put it into context. There is an entire regulation about how this gets repaid. There's federal language and state language, and I won't walk you through all of it because it's very complicated. And it was part of UI reform after the last recession, so it's a whole way to deal with it. It's paid out over a number of years. The number, I think from 2009 when we came out of the last recession, we did not fully come out of that recession for, I think it was actually 8 years.
Right, but what are we doing today to make an effort to pay that down? We
are in conversations with our partners in the federal government. New York is one of the states that signed on to a letter to Janet Yellen at the Treasury, urging her to use her authority to forgive at least some of this debt. And, I know that the governor has been very engaged with government partners, trying to figure out other ways to alleviate at least some of this, because, nobody had any.
How are you?
Yeah. What is the impact to unemployment insurance payers now, the businesses, result because of that debt?
So there is a rate schedule. Because of my order in 2021, no one was charged their experience rating. That's the number of people that go on unemployment. You get a certain rating for that. It was flat for everybody for the entire year because nobody had any control over it. The experience rating restarted this year. The rate that they got for this year reflects last year's experience. So there's a small increase for everybody because of the debt. It's not huge, but it does not have any experience rating. So there will actually be some people who will get bills this year that may actually be lower than last year. Next year is when you will begin to see the experience rating added onto it. So we have a year's leeway to continue to work this problem.
Okay. With regards to those that received benefits through no fault of their own, but are being told now they shouldn't have received them. I know you addressed this a little bit earlier. The federal government is, I think part of the question to you was the federal government is somehow waiving those, repayment of those. And what's New York State doing with that?
The federal government they've said you can waive it. They have not instituted a blanket waiver. There is some action afoot to have a federal blanket waiver of these no fault of your own problems. It would be a great solution, frankly. New York State we have developed our own way. They allowed us to develop a waiver system. So we are developing it. We are rolling it out this quarter. It is an IT solution. We don't want anybody to have to put anything on paper. We're going to do, a back and forth with digital technology, and they can send us their information, and then the waiver will be decided. It's basically decided on grounds of equity and good conscience. So it's a pretty easy waiver to get, and it will be rolling out this quarter. We're not doing all of them at once because it would be a very large number. We're going to do them in chunks so that we can maintain.
Some people have received letters saying they have to pay it back at this point, correct?
Yes, and there are some people who do have to pay it back. I mean,
I'm sure there will be, and I'm sure there should be.
Yes.
But as regards to those through no fault of their own, are they getting any notice at this point that there might be a waiver process for them, or are they just worried about this collection letter they got?
No, I believe we have sent notice about this, but I don't want to say for sure. Let me find out exactly what we've done, because we now believe that we have to over communicate with everybody. So we're doing our level best to make sure we get these messages out. As I said earlier, last week we sent out over 3 million emails and over 2 million text messages to customers about various programs. So we constantly communicate with our customers, but let me find out exactly what we've said to them.
And in regards to that $9 billion federal debt, you said it's very minimal to the employer for that, but what do you consider minimal?
No, I mean, eventually, if nothing is done and every employer has to help pay back their share, it will be an increase. Let's be very real about it. But this year, it is not a major impact because some of that's not going to happen until next year. I'm not saying it's minimal. There will be an increase for everyone.
Well,
But
I am receiving complaints from businesses that the rates went up significantly. They're not really sure what it's due to.
the rates went up because there is legislation that was passed after the UI reform, frankly, that stabilized the system after the last recession. And there's a program by which it has to be dealt with. It's an algorithm. And so there's a certain amount that has to go up to cover it. It's not covering the whole debt. The cost of the debt is spread out over years. There's no way we could repay it in, even 5 years. So it's going to be spread out as much as we can.